Good afternoon and welcome everyone. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to join today. We're looking forward to giving an introduction to augmented reality and the different applications across an enterprise. We're going to try and keep it to 30 minutes. So you will have a question bar on the right hand side. There should be a question mark, so you can post your questions there at any time. And we'll do our best to try and answer those questions at the end of the webinar. But if we do run to the 30-minute mark, what we'll answer those questions in a document and a follow-up. So the aim of the webinar is really, as I say, to introduce augmented reality and give you an insight and an understanding of how augmented reality can impact your business, and you can get value from that. So let's get started. So the webinar presenters today, so we have myself, so I look after augmented reality at Root Solutions from a commercial perspective. We have Rory.
Hi everyone, I'm Rory, lead technical for anything AR related here at Root Solutions. And we were supposed to have Rob Gaynor join us, but unfortunately we've had some technical hiccups as he's based in the States, so I don't think he's going to be able to join us unless anything changes during the course of this webinar. But unfortunately he's sort of Global Channel Director for PTC.
Brilliant, so we're going to go on to the agenda. So we're going to start by introducing augmented reality applications across the business. So we've got 5 core applications that we're going to run through today. Rory's then going to take over and we're going to run through the different ways of consuming or viewing augmented reality. So that's from mobiles, tablets and headsets, and the advantages and disadvantages that come with that. And then finally, we're going to run through how to initiate or start an augmented reality experience, and then PTC's involvement in augmented reality.
It is worth just noting quickly as well, we are going to record this and stick it on our YouTube channel at the end of that. So for those of you that couldn't make it or colleagues, we will be posting it on our YouTube channel.
Fantastic. So again, firstly, I know there's quite a few new faces on new names on the webinar today. So I just want to give a very brief background on who PTC are and who Root Solutions are. So PTC, I'm sure you're quite familiar that they are an industry leader in the CAD and PLM sector, so Creo and Windchill, as I'm sure you're probably familiar with. And they've strategically invested in IoT and augmented reality over the last 5 to 10 years with their own software offerings. And Root Solutions, so we're the largest PTC partner in the UK and also the longest standing, so we've been operational for 28 years. And we provide software services, support and training across the full PTC portfolio. So firstly, what is augmented reality? I often get asked that question, especially when I'm introducing it to customers. So AR overlays digital information on top of physical objects or environments to convey size, scale and information. So AR can be viewed through mobile devices, tablets and also headsets. So another question that very commonly asked is, what's the difference between VR and AR? Or do you see customers getting confused sort of at the early stages? So virtual reality is taking a user into a completely different world, different vision. It fulfills your whole entire field of vision and it transports you into a different location. Whereas augmented reality, it's overlaying digital information into the physical world. So today we're going to run through 5. You can appreciate there's a number of different applications for augmented reality that PTC customers and Root Solutions customers are using. However, we just wanted to narrow it down to the main ones. There are other ones such as safety and compliance that we haven't narrowed down into, but we'll keep it to the main ones for today. So we're going to start off with sales and marketing, which is obviously an integral part of any business to generate revenue. So the challenges customers face with sales and marketing are making their products visually immersive for their customers. It can be a case that customers, from a sales perspective, they actually have to take customers to site, or they have to bring physical product to introduce to a customer. From a trade show perspective, you might have to physically ship product to a trade show, which can be quite costly. Also setting expectations. So often if you're developing bespoke products, can be a case that there's a different expectation for that product between the manufacturer and the customer. And augmented reality can all help with these challenges. So we're going to run through Cannondale as an example today. So Cannondale, I'm sure you're all aware, develop high-end bikes. And we're going to start with a video just running through their experience with using augmented reality from a sales perspective.
The bicycle industry is unique in that we don't own our dealerships, so we count on independent bicycle dealers to sell our product.
So it leads to some challenges because we have a lot of technology-driven products. If you don't have the right talking points to talk to those products, it becomes a harder sale to make.
We put a thing mark on every bike. They scan that thing mark. The first thing that usually pops up for them is the marketing info. The next big section is kind of spare parts. We explode the entire bike, and then you can just touch each one of the parts, and you get our kit information and description and any substitute parts that you would need.
So it really makes it more efficient as well as more engaging at all levels of the sale, and then the service after the sale. My ultimate goal is to keep both our dealers and our end consumers happy in riding their bikes, and anything we could do to make that process for them easier, keep their bikes out of the shop and on the trail more often, is something great.
It doesn't take a computer science degree to do this.
So from Cannondale's perspective, they looked at using augmented reality from a sales perspective for their resellers or distributors and also their end users to be able to identify and order spare parts. That's a great example. There are other companies such as IKEA, Lego, who you can imagine are using it from a perspective. So IKEA, you can physically place a product in your living room, one-to-one scale, which is pretty cool. So there's a number of different ways you can use augmented reality for a sales perspective. But Cannondale's a great example. We've got a quote here as well. I think the key takeaway from this quote is that all of the hard work is done in the CAD data for most engineering business as such, and AR is purely a way of visualizing that and creating an immersive sales and marketing experience.
So most of you are on the call, especially our customers, will already have CAD data sitting there waiting to be used. It's just another tool to add to your arsenal to help engage customers and grab the attention in a saturated market.
So we're going to move on to product assembly. So in the manufacturing side of things, let's dive in. So the challenges for product assembly, a lot of companies are still working on a paper-based approach without any visual aids, so more text-based, text-heavy assembly instructions for users on the shop floor. And this can be hard to interpret. There can be challenges with product quality and consistency. And they can sometimes cause rework on the product. So the example we're going to use today is BAE Systems. So they develop hybrid batteries in the States for buses and coaches. And they traditionally did use paper, and they've piloted using augmented reality assembly instructions. So we're going to show you a quick clip here. Also worth mentioning that the AR experiences for BAE were consumed on a headset, which means that you're hands-free.
PTC's mixed reality solution has allowed us to drag and drop our 3D models that we already have to create guided work instructions to deliver to our production floor in hours and at 1/10 of the cost.
We develop a step-by-step guide that lets the assembler completely assemble the battery.
You're not looking at this in 2 dimensions anymore on a screen that's far away from you. It's right in front of you.
The HoloLens has really become beneficial in allowing us to train new people on this product 30 to 40% more efficiently.
Using the HoloLens, I was able to cut my assembly time in half. We can understand and we can learn so much faster, efficiently, feel a part of this process.
So a great example there of using augmented reality for product assembly. And you can see there's a lot of value you can get from that, return on investment, from a time to actually assemble and time to train users as well. It's also worth noting that actually creating product assembly documentation can be quite time consuming, and AR can speed up that process. So we're going to move on to service and maintenance, which is a core part of a product's life cycle. Service and maintenance might be conducted by the end user themselves, a distributor, or the manufacturer themselves, and it's very important. So the challenges faced are ensuring that your product doesn't have downtime and is fully operational, and the end customer is getting value from it at the end of the day. And similar to product assembly, there can be challenges from having paper-based instructions or manuals. There can be challenges with inconsistency of servicing, and also visualizing machine data can be a challenge. So the example we're going to show is Howden. So we're going to run on to that now. So Howden are a manufacturer of gas and air equipment. And this is going to show how they use augmented reality. They integrated it with IoT, but also for maintenance and servicing.
Using PTC's Vuforia Studio, one of our industrial customers, Howden was able to easily and quickly create a mixed reality experience.
Howden is an original equipment manufacturer. Our products can be found in virtually every air and gas application. If this equipment ever goes offline, it costs a lot of money.
Compressor is a critical equipment within the wastewater plant. Plant operators are not typically expert of compressors.
Our customers are looking for us for solutions to empower them and how to best service their equipment.
Today, Howden is pulling ThingWorx data that's operating on an Azure IoT cloud, and it's overlaying that information in context through mixed reality.
We're overlaying the digital twin data on the physical product to show our customers the operating condition and the performance of the equipment.
Literally at their fingertip, we can provide 160 years of compressor knowledge.
Using Microsoft HoloLens, that customer experience is truly immersive, and you get to understand a lot more, and it's just a new way of looking at your equipment that you've never had before.
So we just dived in here to sort of a user perspective view of what you could be looking at through maybe a HoloLens, some eyewear, or a tablet. We're using a product called Creo View for viewing this information. And here you can see in front of us we've got a physical object, which is sort of a miniature Howden pump, and we're overlaying CAD geometry over the top of that using AR, so we can recognize the shape of the object and overlay the CAD data to show, in this instance, a servicing procedure, so a removal of a valve or whatever it may be. So we'll just let that play through. So you can see how it tracks the physical data and maintains that association. So let that play through for a little bit. Now, it's worth noting, actually, you know, PTC is a supplier of Creo, but when it comes to AR, we are CAD agnostic. We don't care what CAD program you use. It could be SolidWorks data, it could be Inventor data. It really doesn't matter when it comes to the AR world of things. So we'll just jump back to the slides.
Yes, similar to what you've just seen in the video there, just a very brief overview on how the challenges that Howden face. So it's mainly around downtime with their products. It can be extremely costly, and through using both augmented reality and IoT data, they were able to visualize data and also use an AR for servicing. So here's just a quote just outlining how the importance of servicing. Great, so we're going to go on to training and knowledge capture, which is a bit of a hot topic at the moment. So one of the main challenges that we see with our customer base, and I think across the world at the moment, is an aging population, an aging workforce. So this can mean that certain engineers and manufacturing staff who are very experienced and obviously has a large skill set, there is risk of losing that skill set. So there is an opportunity to use augmented reality to capture skills and then transfer them to new starters and existing users as well. And similar to the product assembly as well, we see training methods are quite traditional with paper and aren't very immersive and at the moment don't have many visual aids, which augmented reality can help. So we're going to show an example here.
Yeah, so on screen here, what we've got, we're sort of similar setup to the previous example here. So we've got a physical product, which is an engine, and over the top of that, we're overlaying some AR content. So you could use this for a sort of initial sort of training guide coming in. As you can see, the user is cycling down the list on the left-hand side, and in the CAD view, in the AR view, it's highlighting that specific geometry. So a user can really get familiar with all of the different components, where they're located within an assembly. So this is just sort of one example of how AR can be used in a very basic sort of training but intuitive guide. On screen here, you can see we've got some interactive callouts that are updating as we walk around the model. These callouts could just be lists like they are there, or it could be IoT data. We could be pulling information off of sensors and showing that live on the model. So someone, a shop floor manager could be walking down his shop floor, and as he walks past individual machines, it could be feeding information to that person. Flow rate, whatever it may be, time to next service, that sort of stuff.
So similar to the example you're seeing here, you can see that augmented reality can cross-pollinate across different applications. So the example you're seeing here could be a features and benefits or a sales and marketing application as well as a training aid. So the final application is remote assistance. So we often see that customers will have more of a traditional method for remote assistance, so through telephone, through face-to-face, email, and web conference. There are applications out there, such as Before a Chalk, one of P2C's product, where you can connect user to user and integrate augmented reality to solve problems. So, I mean, lack of communication can be a challenge between, whether it be between manufacturing staff and engineering, or a user out in the field actually servicing a product. And companies can actually transport users to a location to fix a product, and products and applications can solve that. So we're going to show an example here of Varian. So they develop radiotherapy machines, and this is going to show an example of both foot servicing and remote assistance.
Yeah, so what we can see on screen here is we have an end user, maybe a servicing engineer out on site, running through a servicing procedure. So we've got an operation on the pulley here, and he's using AR to follow the step-by-step guide. But as with all of these things, there could be mistakes in the procedure that we need to get resolved. And for this, we're going to start a chalk call with one of the engineers back in the office. So this guy's out on site, but we're going to give a sort of a live call back to the office here. With the engineer who created the AR experience. So Chalk is like a sort of fancy FaceTime, really. So it's a live video feed from one user to another, with the additional bonus of having AR content in it. So as you can see, we've got this live stream, and it gives you the ability to draw on the actual video feed itself. So these call outs and arrows and circles that the user is creating actually lock on to the physical and actual geometry. So as the camera moves around, those annotations stay in place. And this gives you a sort of an extra level of information when you're trying to convey something when you're not actually there on site. And all of these calls are tracked and recorded. So if you need to log those into the systems at the end, you get that all compiled nicely for yourself and ready to go.
Brilliant. So yeah, so from Varian's perspective, you can see that they were using augmented reality for both servicing and remote support as well. It's very important from them from a servicing perspective from downtime. So downtime of their machines can be extremely costly. And it's also important that the servicing procedures are conducted correctly. So we have a quote here.
Okay then, so just to move on to the sort of last stages of this webinar, I'm going to run through and present some different ways to consume augmented reality. So on screen here, we've got the sort of major three categories of how you can consume AR content. So we start on the left-hand side here with smartphones and tablets. These are probably the most widespread. Most people have a smartphone these days and or a tablet, and so do businesses. They have particular advantages of the high-end display, so you can get some nice visuals for a sales and marketing approach. And they're quite powerful, so you can run quite heavy CAD data on them if need be, or other 3D content. One of the disadvantages of a smartphone or a tablet though is it requires you to keep hold of it. Okay, you don't have your hands free to do other things. You've at least got to have one hand holding it or a stand next to you, which adds clutter and that sort of stuff. The next then are sort of eyewear. So you can split these into two categories. We've got 2D and 3D eyewear. We'll start with 3D eyewear. So these are the likes of sort of HoloLens or Magic Leap. And these enable you to visualize 3D data in a physical world. Advantages of that, you've got your hands free. Okay, so you can interact with your augmented reality content via hand gestures or voice command. So you can start an operation just by talking to your headset. Some of the limitations with the eyewear, though, is there's a slightly more costly operation and requires a bit more of an infrastructure. Most people have phones and tablets. Most people don't have 3D eyewear to hand. And then the 2D eyewear. So the 2D eyewear is much more suited for sort of capturing augmented reality content. So we have a product called Expert Capture, which is for documenting legacy knowledge within existing employees and SOPs, that sort of thing. And this 2D eyewear is great for that. Not so good for displaying 3D data, but it can ping 2D information like text and prompts to the user. Worth noting for sort of both the 3D and 2D eyewear options, there are PPE versions for most of these products. So HoloLens, there's a hard hat version, and the same for RealWear as well. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. So I wanted to just quickly mention how you sort of start an AR experience. Obviously, we can create this content, and you've seen it sort of advertised in some of those videos, but how do you actually get a user to view a piece of AR content? And there are a couple of different ways. With Vuforia, we don't really care what platform we're pumping out to. We could be pumping out to an iOS device, an Android device, it doesn't really matter. And we can start some AR content in one of these sort of 6 ways you see on screen. So I'm just going to go into a little bit of detail on each of those to give you an idea how you could get a user to interact with their content. So the first one is a view mark. So you've probably seen a QR code at some point in your life, one of those sort of funky squares that you can scan. It will take you to a web page or whatever it may be. A view mark is the AR equivalent, the Vuforia QR code, you could think of it as. And this can be brand specific, so you've got some examples on the left-hand side there, and they can push your user to any different sort of AR experience you may have. The next is an image target. So this could just be just a 2D flat image. It could be a picture in a brochure, a business card, something like that. And we use that as a locational target, and we can populate your AR content on top of that, as you can sort of see in that little GIF on the left-hand side. A multi-target is kind of a combination of multiple of an image target. So great for packaging. So we can arrange those multiple 2D image targets into a shape like a box and overlay that over some packaging, as you can see on screen there. A cylinder target is very similar again. We take a 2D image, we can wrap it around a cylinder. So if you wanted to display something on a bottle or on a cup, a cylindrical target is the way to go for that. One of the most sort of common operations is using what we call a ground plane or a mid-air placement, and this will enable the camera to recognize flat surfaces like a floor or a tabletop and place your AR content just in the real world without any need for a printout or anything along those lines. An object target then, sort of moving on to sort of more advanced placement types. With this, we can start identifying the objects themselves and the actual 3D shapes. So an object target is great for something that's rigid, like a small product or a little toy, and we can overlay AR content over the top of that. Moving on from that then is a model target, which is a slightly more advanced version of an object target. And with these, we get the ability to recognize CAD data or a 3D object from any perspective. So we don't have to be approaching it from a specific angle like what we might with a object target. And we can overlay CAD data in the real world, like in these examples here.
Brilliant. So I just wanted to do a very quick piece. This hasn't been a software-focused webinar. It's been more looking at the applications and the value, what you can get from augmented reality. But I just wanted to do a very quick mention on P2C's Vuforia technology. So Vuforia is P2C's augmented reality offering. They have a number of products. They have 4 core products, and they are designed to fulfill or to tackle the challenges that we've run through today.
It's worth noting we are going to go in, we're going to probably do another webinar at some point in the future that will dive down into these specific Vuforia products. As Luke said, there are sort of 4 main Vuforia products within PTC's portfolio, and we plan to do another webinar at some point in the future doing a bit of a deep dive into each of those, so keep your eyes out for that.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And finally, I just wanted to mention a number of these products are focused towards engineering, manufacturing and industrial companies, which is one of P2C's real USPs.
One of the big points just on this slide here is down at the bottom there, you can see 60% of AR applications use Vuforia, and there's one sort of major reason for that is that it's software agnostic. It doesn't mind if it's sort of Windows, UWP or iOS with Apple or Android. It can be applied to any sort of software device, where some other AR applications are limited in that factor.
Brilliant. So I'm just cautious on time, so we're just going to go on to the last slide. So yeah, thanks for everyone's time for joining today. Hopefully that was a useful and worthwhile 30-minute webinar for you, and you've got a good understanding of how augmented reality can potentially apply to your company and where you can get value from AR. I just wanted to put our contact details here. If you obviously are starting your AR journey, we're more than happy to help with that. And also, one key takeaway is Vuforia View is a free app on the App Store. So people who are just starting out, it's got a number of AR experiences created by PTC that you can use on your smartphones. That could be on iOS and Android. I'd recommend downloading that and and just try and augmented reality for yourself.
As I say, we will be popping this webinar on our YouTube channel afterwards. So any colleagues that may have missed it, we can point you to that. We'll probably email out a list with all the answers to the chat questions we've had, and a link to the webinar on our YouTube channel along with that. Yeah, thank you all for joining.
Brilliant. Thanks for joining. And as I say, we should be doing a webinar in the next month on where we'll run through PTC's Vuforia solutions specifically. So if you can join that, that'd be fantastic. And thanks again for taking the time out of your day to join.